40% by 2030.
India has announced its climate contributions, or INDCs, or intended nationally determined contributions, on Gandhi Jayanti, a symbolic tribute to a leader who believed in the maintenance of ecological balance and use of renewable resources. India has pledged to cut the intensity of its carbon emissions by 33 to 35% and boost the renewable energy capacity to 40% by the year 2030 in the target submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC, for a global climate pact.
और इन सभी जो टारगेट्स हम दे रहे हैं अभी आगे, उस सब का परिणाम ये होगा कि 3.59 बिलियन टन्स ऑफ CO2 इक्विवेलेंट ये कार्बन एमिशन सेव्ड होंगे. भारत का कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है दुनिया पूछेगी. 350 करोड़ टनों से ज्यादा हम कार्बन उत्सर्जन को कम करेंगे. यही भारत की एक कंट्रीब्यूशन है.
India will also create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent through additional forest cover and tree cover by 2030. India will require at least $2.5 trillion at current prices to implement these plans till 2030. India has already reduced its so-called carbon intensity by 12% since 2005. India's INDCs are in line with most of the developing world and is more ambitious than China on renewable energy. Each of the 192 countries are expected to submit their climate contributions ahead of the climate change conference in Paris. Well, New Delhi has announced its climate contributions. It's now in the league of more than 55 countries, including the US and China, who have already announced their climate contributions. The focus now shifts to Paris, where many hope for a global climate deal, a deal to save planet Earth. With camera person Praveen Johar, Sidhant, Sibal, DD News, New Delhi.
And on a day he announced India's intended nationally determined contributions, Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar spoke exclusively to my colleague Sidhant Sibal. You just saw him on the screen. Now, he assured DD News that India's climate contributions will mean that India's per capita emissions in 2030 will remain lower than the current global average of developed nations, which is at this point will be lower in fact in 2030 than what developed nations are at this point.
Well, India has announced its climate commitments, and with me is the Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar. Sir, welcome to Doordarshan News. My first question is, sir, two key highlights of India's commitments which were submitted to the UN.
We are reducing our emission intensity by 35% in 2030. That means a rise of our target by 75% in 10 years. That's a huge thing. India has taken up. Then we will raise our energy, non-fossil fuel energy share to 40%. That means from 30% to 40%, it's a jump of nearly 33%. It's a huge again.
So how will India balance its development needs and its climate commitments?
These climate contributions. So climate contribution is perfectly a balance of development, poverty eradication, and therefore we will grow. But we are growing on a sustainable way. The developed world grew with lesser carbon emission, with more carbon emission per development of GDP, and we are developing the same GDP, attaining the same development of GDP with lesser carbon emission.
So you said 40% of energy needs will come from non-fossil fuels. So can you give us the breakup? How much will be the non-renewable and the nuclear energy?
It's a renewable is a huge program, 175 declared up to 2022. There will be further program from 22 to 2030. So it's a major of solar, wind, biomass, hydro, then nuclear and other resources, non-fossil fuel resources, big hydro. So all will come. And that means where there is no carbon emission.
So what will be total cost of India's climate contributions?
It will be, the total cost can be varied, but as we are growing and we are expecting to grow continuously up to 2030, thereby our GDP and personal incomes will grow threefold. So there will be tremendous resources available.
So will we be taking some financial help from other countries? There is the Green Fund also.
See, Green Fund, the world has committed, and they must walk the talk, and therefore we will definitely expect that technology support and financial support will be there for all developing countries.
So my last question, you said India was not the part of the problem, but will be part of the solution. Can you elaborate on it?
Yes, because cumulative emissions, which is causing today climate change. We are today experiencing 0.8 degree temperature rise. That is causing many havoc. So that is not my problem, because we have been only 3% of cumulative. Our share of cumulative emission till today, since 1880, is just 3%. America has 30%, other developed countries are 50% nearly, China has 10%, and we are just 3%.
Okay, sir. So that was the Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar talking exclusively with DD News and clearly emphasizing the fact that India's INDCs which were announced, India's climate contributions which are announced is a clarion call for climate justice. With camera person Praveen Jawhar, Sidhant Sibal, DD News, New Delhi.